You're listening to the Grit to Growth podcast. Real talk with real business owners and professionals who built their freedom the hard way and now want more time, money, and impact.
Hello and welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Levi with Mailbox Money, and today I'm joined by Jason Boutwell out of both Sioux Falls and Fargo, North and South Dakota, respectively, and he's with Pro Resources. Jason, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. This will be fun.
Yeah. So, Jason, you have spent over 30 years in business and leadership. You've been consulting, helping small businesses grow. And now you are doing the Pro Resources, which is HR outsourcing. Is that correct?
That's right. You got it. 30 years sounds like a long time, which basically is a very polite way to say, hey, Jason, you're really old, aren't you? And the answer to that is yes. Yes, I am.
Before we started, Jason was playing around. He said he has kind of the mindset and attitude of a 27-year-old, but he's got the look of wisdom upon him.
I try. I've learned a lot of lessons. Success can be a terrible teacher. Failure it has a way of helping you correct, and success can have the opposite impact, right? And I've had plenty of successes and plenty of failures. I probably learned more through failure than I have through success. But yeah, wisdom. God, that's something I never thought that would come upon me, but it does. It's a synonym for gray hair for those that pay attention, that are self-aware, that are coachable. Wisdom should come with age, and I'd be, I guess I should be proud to say that I've got some.
Well, Jason, why don't you kind of take us on your journey and kind of how you, where you came from, how you got started, and how you got to where you are today?
Sounds good. So as a kid, I bounced around a little bit. I was born in Texas, moved to Michigan, graduated high school in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I moved to Fargo as a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed college freshman. I'd love to tell you that I went to NDSU or plotted my course to NDSU because of their esteemed academic program, but the truth is I came up to play college football. And I loved it. It was, I joke when people ask me what position I played, and I say bench warmer because that was the most accurate position that I played, most accurate depiction of the position that I played on the team. But some of my best friends and the leadership skills that I still carry through to this day, a lot of that did come from my formidable years at NDSU. My first big boy job, sounds like it might have been yours as well, Levi, was for a company called Gray Bar Electric. It was
Now, a lot of people that you
Yeah.
get when you started there, a lot of people have never heard of Gray. So I'm glad you threw the electric in there because a lot of people thought I was a bartender.
Oh, sure. Gray bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny that you say that. I got the references that it might be a jailhouse, with the gray bars.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I was a little disappointed to take that job, candidly. I planned on working my way through to and into athletic administration. One of my good friends from college was the athletic director at University of South Dakota, just moved on from that job most recently about 2 years ago. Dave Herbster is his name. He's now with
Yeah.
Samford in Sioux Falls. But my plan was to pursue athletic administration. About 1 year into my MBA progress and program at NDSU, I realized that, God, I really don't want to bounce around the country. I don't want to move from Oregon to, Nevada to Colorado and end up in some foreign land. I'm a North Dakota guy. I'm a South Dakota guy. I'm an upper Midwest guy, and that's where I wanted to be. So, it was hard for me to swallow that pill, candidly, because I had visions of athletic dreams and pursuits. But when I moved into a technical role with Gray Bar, I found that my passion really wasn't selling technology because I was on the low voltage side, Levi.
Okay. Yep.
My passion was helping people understand exactly what technology could do for them as electricians. Hey, if you were to adopt these tools, here's some things you could do to increase your revenue. Here's some things that you could do to separate yourself as an electrical contractor to win more business, to have a bigger impact on your bottom line. This was back when electricians were just starting to get into the low voltage game. So that was a ton of fun. I did that for 4 years and 11 months. I remember specifically because at the 5 year mark, I was vested in the 401k. And
Yep.
I stepped away 1 month early to join a company called Mitel as a sales engineer. And I told Mitel, hey, I can't move for a month because I've got this domino that's set to tip, and they wrote me a check and said, hey, we'll provide you that as a signing bonus. And
Hey, that's very neat.
it was incredibly humbling. I was just surprised as a young guy with not a ton of professional confidence that I was worth it. So now I felt like, God, I really have to prove myself, and I worked my tail off there for about 8 years. I spent the next 22 years actually in IT. I worked for a company called Marco Technologies, ended up with some sales leadership responsibility there for a good chunk of my time with Marco. And Marco is a great company. As a matter of fact, one of the first things that we did when I moved over to Pro Resources, we outsourced all of our IT to Marco.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, and the logic on that was it'll play into the rest of our conversation as well. But we've got a very good IT guy here at Pro Resources. We're a small business, 55 employees, so we don't have an IT team. We have an IT person, one. And
Yeah.
that poor guy, his name is Ricky. He was stuck taking help desk calls, and geez, my printer doesn't work. And hey, can you reset my password, Ricky? Or how do I do this?
What do
Ricky
you was
had the
his answer
brain.
always, have you unplugged and plugged it back in yet?
Yes, yes. So the poor guy had the competence to provide real value for our company, but he was stuck in the mud all the time. So when we outsourced IT to Marco, Ricky was able to shed himself of the anchor, that so many HR leaders find themselves anchored to as well. So by delegating, we allowed him to delegate and elevate. Um,
I like it.
and the reason I made the move, though, candidly, was the a rising tide floats all boats. As an organization, we are in the right business at the right time. Many companies are starting to say, okay, for years I've outsourced legal, I've outsourced
Yeah.
marketing. In the early 2000s, organizations started to outsource IT. Small businesses can't justify or afford an IT team internally, but because of all the security bad guys that are out there, IT security and IT management internally it's
More
more than a
important
one
than
man.
ever.
Yeah, it's tough. So I saw that wave at Marco Technologies as people were outsourcing IT, and now organizations are doing it at a furious pace in the HR space. So fast forwarding through some of that stuff to our model at Pro Resources, we would say to a small business, hey, you should maybe consider outsourcing HR for three primary reasons. We're going to reduce your risk, and there's a lot of it. There's a lot of risk in DIYing HR. We're going to increase your capacity, and we're going to maybe save some money in the process. And in reducing risk, that would include things like, God, I've got an employee who's just been a little bit of a struggle. He or she was a great producer for 10 years, and God, something's up. Can you help us dig in and figure out? And maybe it's a communication issue. You've heard a million times that people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. Um,
Yep.
yeah, so we'll help. We'll sit down in a room and we'll help mitigate and flush out whatever that issue might be for retention purposes. Because turnover is freaking expensive, right? Especially in key positions. Um, and if it's not handled correctly, there's lawsuits that sometimes follow. Hey, discriminatory termination practices, just toxic workplace environment, so on and so forth. There's attorneys whose careers are built around suing on a contingency basis ex-employers. So we really help mitigate that risk. For those that aren't a good fit, we make sure that we handle the determination process with dignity, with respect, and with a whole lot of documentation. So we de-risk an organization in the process of engagement. We also provide capacity because the person who is doing the HR, the DIY approach to HR, is most often the most important person inside the organization, a founder, a CFO, somebody who really should be focused externally on pursuing new opportunities, growing business, paying attention to the bottom lines, just building relations internally for culture purposes. So outsourcing IT allowed our IT guy to elevate by delegating, and we say the same thing about HR. So there's a whole bunch to it, of course, but if you look at, say, Sanford in Sioux Falls, they have an HR team of 20, maybe
Yeah.
40. And why is that? It's not because Sanford really likes spending money on people in an unnecessary fashion. Human capital is expensive. It's because they know it's good for their bottom line and they know it's good for their business. And if we can help an organization add to their bottom line, hey, that's job well done. We're happy when that happens.
That's awesome. Well, if you wouldn't mind, Jason, what does it look like? Say, I'm a small business owner. I have, maybe 15 employees or so, and I'm thinking about outsourcing. I think because I want to grow and scale, I need to outsource my HR. What does that look like approaching you, and walk me through that?
Yeah, and we're not the right fit for everybody. Our model is kind of all inclusive. So the first thing I do is I start asking questions to determine whether or not the person across the table from me really is a good fit. You can't prescribe until you diagnose. So we really need to diagnose the needs of the organization. And if we're not a good fit, I will gladly introduce the prospect to somebody that might provide services that are more parallel to their needs. So we start by asking questions, and the reason we do that is because if we're not a good fit, and somehow or another they come up, if we sell them on the idea of joining us, yeah, sunshine and daisies, rainbows are going
Yep.
to follow your signature on this document. Well, then reality hits, and they divorce us 6 months later. We've got reputation damage, we've got revenue damage because it's very expensive for us to onboard and go through that get to know you process. So we just want to make sure that we have a very candid conversation on what we do and maybe even more specifically what we don't do. So back to your question, somebody listening to this podcast says they have an interest in a conversation. It's it's a little bit of a slow conversation to make sure that we turn over every rock, to make sure that we understand exactly what their approach looks like, what their interest in, say, safety is. And safety, wait a second, why does that have to do with HR? Because an HR department at Sanford, they've got a safety team. They want to make sure that they mitigate the risk associated with work comp claims. So they've got a safety team that marches around the building and makes sure that things are physically safe, so that the trip hazards are removed, that fire exits are open and traversable, so that machines are properly guarded, so that training and documentation is in place. So our safety team will get, I have to ask a bunch of questions around safety to make sure that we're a good fit. We don't want to operate with and partner with, you know, safety be damned type clients.
Yep.
We'll talk a little bit about, classification. We really want to interview and make sure that the person we're working with is somebody that is parallel to our desire to run a good shop. Levi, you've been zipping down the highway, maybe out to the hills sometime, and some guy passes you on a motorcycle doing 140 miles an hour.
Oh, easily. I've seen that multiple times.
we an insurer would drop that person, right? And to us, because we take on a lot of risk associated with our clients, we want to make sure that the people that we're insuring, and we're not really insuring them other than in the category of work comp, but we're taking on a lot of liability. We want to make sure that they're clean operators. And the 140 mile an hour motorcycle reference isn't a perfect parallel, of course, but we want to make sure that they care about their employees, that they care
Yeah.
about turnover, that they care about employee engagement, and providing the best possible benefits experience and retirement plans. The organizations that just don't care about their employees, they're not a good fit for us. So we listen very, very closely during our client engagements to make sure that there's a good alignment between what we're trying to accomplish and what the client is trying to accomplish.
So you're telling me you're not looking for the type of organization that just offers some pizza to their employees when things go bad.
You
You're
got it.
wanting
You
a
got it.
little more than that?
It's so important. Pizza is sometimes a band-aid, right? And sometimes it's just evidence of a good culture. Maybe just this little surface level evidence of a good internal culture. no, we're interested in the kind of mind, body, spirit
Yeah.
of the organization and making sure that we can actually plug in and provide some value.
That's awesome. Jason, we were talking before this too, that we both did a little bit of research on each other. And I noticed in your LinkedIn that you said you like to work with people with an abundance mindset. Uh,
Yeah.
kind of tell me why that is and how
Uh,
you got to have that kind of attitude.
Yeah, first of all, I believe in my absolute core that as humans on this earth, there is plenty to go around. I love to celebrate the success of others. As a matter of fact, I was flying back from Austin, Texas last night, landed in Fargo at 10 p.m., and I was sitting on an airplane next to a guy who was in the U.S. Navy. And he was flying to Fargo to pick up his car. He was driving down to Norfolk, Virginia, and we started talking about real estate, Levi, if that sounds familiar. And
Yes, it does.
I gave him a couple homework assignments. I gave him my cell phone number, and I told him to go read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I told him to go read the Cash Flow Quadrant, if you're familiar with that book from Kiyosaki. And I
I
talked to
haven't
him.
Rich Dad
Yeah,
Poor Dad, but not the
yeah.
next one.
There's so much success that can be found in helping others gain success, personal fulfillment. But I'm a big fan of a book called The Go Giver. The go-getter is somebody that is working for their own, hey, I'm going to get as much as I can by hustling. Um, and the go-giver is a book that's written by a guy named Bob Burg, B-U-R-G. As a matter of fact, I carry about half a dozen copies with me everywhere I go. So if we were face to
Nice.
face, I'd give you one. But it's a parable and a story about how those that give to others by those that are really rooting for and genuinely cheering for the success of others, they have a way of finding success with that abundance mindset. And when I first read that book by Bob Burg, I honestly thought that it was a bit of a punk because I felt like I was reading my own biography. So the reason I like working with people that have an abundance mindset is because there's a cost to working with us, dialing it back into a business angle is we charge for our services. So for those that look at our services as simply a cost, we might not be a good fit. For those that look at our services as an opportunity for them to gain some abundance by taking tasks off of their plate, by improving that workplace experience for their employees, happy employees create happy customers. Abundance comes with that. And
Yeah.
abundance comes with having the capacity to go pursue new opportunities for the business. We've got a concrete company that came on board with us about a calendar year ago. Their revenue, and of course there's more variables to this, but their revenue in calendar year 25 was up 35% versus calendar 24 because the poor sap who was responsible for HR, and in concrete there's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of new hires and offboarding, obviously because of the cyclical and seasonal nature of their business. But
Hmm.
the general manager of that business that was able to shuck HR in our direction was able to then focus on pursuing new opportunities and 35% bump. Now, if you don't have an abundance mindset and have a hard time understanding that there's an upside to delegate and elevate, we're probably not going to be a good fit.
Yeah, kind of along those lines, you talked about not only the HR kind of being a newer thing, but um, hit on kind of the reasons why you're seeing more and more businesses deciding to delegate their IT, their HR, their whatever it be. It's becoming more common in practice nowadays, correct?
It is, and the truth is that it probably parallels just the scarcity of qualified staff. In the state of Minnesota, this is dated information from probably April, but I did a presentation to organizations that have a very lonely HR practitioner department of one. So we've got two types of customers. We've got the type of customers that we were talking about earlier that just kind of hand it over to us, and then we've got the lonely HR practitioner that just needs help and is sick of doing the help desk. Hey, what's my
Yeah.
balance in my HSA account? Who's in network? Who can provide a root canal for me? HR managers that really desire to be strategic, they find themselves stuck in that help desk role as well. So back to your question about why are people outsourcing more? is because there's not enough good HR people around. The dated reference that I made a second ago is in April, I did a search on careerbuilder.com and Indeed. Just this was for the state of Minnesota, but of course, as bordering states, we know this is true in our zip codes as well. In the state of Minnesota in April, there was 17,000 some odd open positions for HR candidates, and there was 700 job seekers in that same category. Now, I mean, that's a gap. That's a significant gap.
Yeah.
Um, so some of it might be, hey, I can't find anybody. What options do I have? A good chunk of it, however, the reason for our explosive growth recently is in the state of Minnesota in particular, it's just getting to be harder and harder and harder to be compliant. Paid family medical leave is just a huge pig to swallow for the snake, and maintain attention on their business. So sometimes it's a compliance thing, but as often as anything else, it's I can't find talent, and I need some help.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, Jason, we talked about how you are both in Fargo and in Sioux Falls here. Is that tell us more on that? Is that something you're excited about, growing your business, and what does maybe the next year or so look like for you guys?
Sure, it's super exciting. Prior to my move over to Pro Resources as an equity partner in the business, I bought into the business. I had been to Sioux Falls, many times over, but I was working with IT leaders and IT leaders only, and my own sales team at Marco Technologies. So my exposure to the Sioux Falls market was pretty limited, other than driving past and looking at the architecture and the growth and the excitement and the vibe of Sioux Falls. And now that I have an opportunity to really satisfy that curiosity itch and talk to business owners in Sioux Falls, I just have that much better appreciation for the growth mindset of the community. And it's been a ton of fun. 2 years ago or so, I bought a house in Sioux Falls. So I'm fully anchored and fully committed.
Nice.
My wife will sometimes say hi to your second family when I'm headed to Sioux Falls, which is every other week. I spend my time in Sioux Falls. Proud to say that we've had great success in Sioux Falls in the 2 years that we've been focusing our attention into that market. But momentum is sometimes slow to build, but once that snowball is rolling downhill, that momentum is easier. It's easier to grow from 10 to 20 than it is from 0 to 10. And
Yeah.
we've had some great success, but our anticipation is that it's only going to improve year over year from here on out. And it's all through reputation, right? Doing the right thing, really bringing on those customers that are a good fit for us, because we don't have billboards, we don't advertise. People are going to hear about us through referrals. And
Yeah.
and
Very
I tell you,
powerful.
one of the best compliments that I had was from Stern Companies. They're down in Freeman, South Dakota.
Uh-huh.
Um, Stern has referred some clients over in our direction, which is a great testament to their satisfaction with us. But they're in a peer group of other family-owned fuel operators. So they deliver fuel all over the state of South Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming, North Dakota. And in their peer group, they had the opportunity to participate in a little contest. They do it every year. And they were asked, as a member of the peer group, hey, what's the most impactful decision you made in the last calendar year? And I was so flattered when they said outsourcing HR and engaging Pro Resources was the most impactful thing that we did in calendar 24. It was just awesome. I felt like a proud parent in that
Yeah,
moment.
you need to get a video testimony of that one.
Oh, we have one. We
You
do
do?
actually.
There you
We
go.
do. If you go to our website, we've got Dots Pretzels is up there, Stern Incorporated, a couple of
Nice.
others. We try to kind of divide them out by industry. Some white collar, some blue collar, engineering, insurance, so on and so
You guys
forth.
tackle the whole gambit there.
We do. We
Yeah,
do.
very good.
Those organizations that have a need for a safety department as part of their HR offering are a little bit more likely to see some value in what we do. So our close rate, if we can call it that, is a little bit higher in the conversations that include blue collar, gray collar type organizations. But we do offer a lot of value to a lot of different companies.
That makes sense. You mentioned a website. If anyone listening wants to learn more about Pro Resources, where would you send them? And then also
Yeah. Thanks
personal
for asking.
wise,
It's Pro
where would you?
Resources. Yeah, sorry, I talked over
Yeah.
you there, Levi.
No, you're fine. I was just saying personally as well, where would you send someone who wants to learn more about your journey and connect with you?
Yeah.
So both
Well,
business
LinkedIn
and
is a great
personal.
place for that. I'm a fairly regular contributor to LinkedIn. When I stumble across something that's new and exciting, I just can't help myself but share it. LinkedIn's a great place to do that. So Jason Boutwell, you can find me on LinkedIn. There's not a lot of us floating around. People with weirdo last names like yours and like mine are a little bit easier to find than say Dan Johnson on LinkedIn.
100%.
And then our website is proresourceshr.com. And I'd love to connect digitally or face to face is my preference, of course.
Beautiful. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your business and your mindset, what you're looking for and what you're doing. Again, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Levi. It was fun to talk.
Yes. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Know someone with serious grit and a great growth story? Send them our way at grittogrowthpodcast.com/guest.